Wednesday afternoon, everybody. It's Jim. It's Amadeus. And Amadeus, I'll tell you, this is one of the most vast wastelands of sports weekends, or weeks, I should say, in basically in sports in general. The NFL, we don't have a Thursday night football game to talk about. And, things are pretty dormant at this time of the year.
Yeah, it's crazy. We had like almost an overload of games,
Yeah.
basically, like from mid
Bowl game, all
December
that.
all the way up to the new year, and then
Hmm.
everything died on New Year's Day, and this is what we're
Hmm.
left with, just the conference basketball starting up, and even in the NFL, we roll into the last week of the NFL regular season, and half the teams have nothing to play for. The other half teams are resting players. So it's a very difficult week for sports, that's for sure.
And, it's one of those things where you sit back and go, okay, well, that's kind of nice, but it's not necessarily what we want. But, we decided, okay, let's take a look at the power rankings in the NBA. Um, by the way, one quick note of interest. Jim Harbaugh, it came out that Jim Harbaugh's agent, um, he changed agents and he went with Don Yee. Now, some of you may know Don, some of you may not. Don Yee happens to be Tom Brady's agent. So read into that what you will. Whether or not he wants to be the head football coach at the University of Michigan for the most money in the history of college coaching, maybe that's where we're going with this, or maybe he's going back to the NFL. But when you don't hire Don Yee just because you need a new agent, just saying.
Yeah, I did see that. It'll be interesting to see, obviously, because the Bucks still have Tom Brady's contract, and
Right.
I did hear recently in the last week that apparently Brady was planning on unretiring again, but his friends threw him a retirement party, and he just felt so bad that he was like, I can't do this to them.
Well, I understand from some folks who I know who live in Los Angeles that Tom went to a Fox Sports party the other day, and they made the announcement that he would be, coming over as their number one color analyst this year, and he had some pictures taken with some of the Fox executives. So read into that what you will. But I don't know. I think Tom should just stay where he is, collecting checks and doing commercials. He's fine with that. So again, we'll see how that plays out. All right. So here's the top. We're going from 10 to 1. The Miami Heat are the 10th best team in the power rankings this week. Their record is 18-12. Last week they were 19 on the list, so that's almost a 10 spot jump.
Yeah, I don't know about the Miami Heat. They've been a very up and down team this season. I
Mhm.
know they're sitting at fourth in the Eastern Conference right now, but yeah, they're just they're such a wild card team. I know they're one of the worst covering teams in the NBA. So at least over the last 3 seasons, they have been.
Yeah. Number 9 on the list, Dallas Mavericks. Now, this is pretty interesting. Dallas Mavericks, if some of you may or may not know that Mark Cuban sold the team. Mark being Mark, sold the team to to MGM, basically, to the gaming company. And he retained 49%, and he continues to be in charge of basketball operations. And for all intents and purposes, what he did is he made a lot of money and was able to keep control of the team. So, in a typical Mark move, Mark doesn't lose, and that's the way it goes for the Mavericks. So the Mavericks are your number 9 team. The number 8 team is the Sacramento Kings, um, at 17-11. Last week they were 8. This week they're 8 as well. Any thoughts on the Kings?
Yeah, I think the Kings are a very good team. Uh,
Better than the record then.
yeah, I'm so the Mavericks number 9. I'm just staring at the I'm staring at the NBA teams here myself,
Mhm.
and doing a little mental math, and there's definitely going to be a team not in this top 10 that I think belongs in the top 10. So
Right.
I'm just trying to figure out what that is right
Who's it
now.
gonna be? Yeah, who's it gonna be?
Yeah,
Um,
because I'm counting. Honestly, I'm counting 9 teams ahead of the Mavericks in the standings, and I think
a
never mind the standings at this point. I think all
right,
those teams are probably better than the Mavericks.
right. Here's one for you. The 7th spot goes to the LA Clippers, the team who's spending one more year at the Crypto Dome before they head off to their new building, which is in the same complex as SoFi Stadium. So the Clippers, the number 9 or 7 position. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think the Clippers have the potential to be a very dangerous team this year.
Hmm.
They're slowly starting to find their groove now
Right.
with Harden in the lineup there, and you got to keep in mind that this team is 21-12, and Kawhi sits out every other game.
Right.
So just imagine if they actually played all their players all the time. I wonder what kind of what where the ceiling is on this Clippers team when everybody's playing.
Well, the other thing too uh, is that because the season's so long, it's kind of broken up into 2 parts. As long as you can stay relevant um, till that stretch run, the Clippers could go from number 7 to number 2 or 3. I mean, if Kawhi brings them, brings him some luck when he hits the hardwood. The Milwaukee Bucks are the 6th best team. Uh, they have the 3rd best record, so I'm not quite sure. At 22-8, they rank as the 6th best team in the power rankings this week.
You know what? I don't have a problem with that. They're a very wonky team,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean Lillard. You could say Lillard
Right.
has helped out. I don't think he has. If anything, their defensive efficiency has gone down a ton
Hmm.
this year. They have one of the worst defenses in the NBA, and that's
Right.
been a big problem as we saw. Last night they lost to the
Hmm.
Pacers for the 4th time this season.
Right.
And the Pacers are a team that they lead the NBA in pace and scoring. So
Hmm.
obviously the Bucks they can beat you out physically,
Hmm.
but when they play these fast paced teams that score a lot, that's where they're
Right.
going to struggle, as it's been very apparent in their struggles with the Pacers this
Right.
year. And there's other teams in the NBA like that will get them. Like the Hawks are a team, obviously, great
Sure.
3-point team there. That's a kind of team that could outplay Milwaukee
Hmm.
on a given night.
Then we got the 76ers in number 5 spot, 20-9. It's been a wild run for the for them. For last Monday, the Sixers were 17-0 and the only undefeated in games that they led by 10 points going into the fourth quarter. Now they're 19-2. So, you know, not bad because we talk about, in the NBA, it's usually the teams that um, can close things out that win. And so it looks like at least now, is a recipe for the Sixers.
Yeah, the 76ers, they got a really solid coach
Hmm.
too. Obviously, they're in their first season with Nick Nurse there, and we
Right.
saw, he's worked with nothing almost on the Raptors for years, and
Right.
then he won a championship with the Raptors when they finally did
Hmm.
put together a team, and still kept them somewhat competitive after the team fell apart. So yeah, I think the 76ers have a great coach, and really a lot of their struggles this year has been due to Joel Embiid dealing
Right.
with some injury. Even right now,
Mm-hmm.
I know he's missed quite a few games over the last few weeks. So
Mm-hmm.
and they're still third in the East. So yeah, the 76ers are definitely a force in the NBA this year. And I think when Embiid is healthy and the whole team is rolling, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be a very dangerous team.
Here's a blast from the past. The number 4 team is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Haven't heard their names called in the roster very much as of late.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. I think OKC is the best team in the NBA right now, and
Wow.
I know they've been on a little run lately where they have some
Mm-hmm.
quality wins. They beat the Nuggets in Denver, and they beat some other
Mm-hmm.
teams that are at the top of the NBA. They just beat the Celtics at home the other night. But even
Right.
before that, the signs have been there for this Thunder team.
Mm-hmm.
This was a team just 3 seasons ago where they weren't even competitive. And slowly
Right.
you've seen them. They made the playoffs last year, or at least the
Mm-hmm.
play-in tournament. And slowly they've been building up. And now this year, the addition of Chet Holmgren has
Mm-hmm.
really boosted this team. And they're right now they're one of the best in the NBA by far.
Yeah.
I think 4 is too low and it's disrespectful. Just look at the wins they've had in the last week. Now that's consistency. You can say what you want
Yeah.
about catching teams at the right times, but they went on the road and they beat Denver twice this season.
Mm-hmm.
They've beat the Timberwolves. They just beat the Celtics. Yeah, they were at home for that one, but this is a battle tested team, and they've shown a lot of consistency this year. Definitely, you've seen the signs the last 3 seasons of the improvement. They've been one of the best covering teams in the NBA the last 3 years,
Right.
and I think this year that they're finally here. They might be the best team in the NBA.
They might be there. Well, number 3 is the aforementioned Denver Nuggets. How they end up number 3 with ahead of OKC, I don't know, but there they are.
Yeah, so
So
again, here we got another situation where we do the power rankings, yet we don't watch the league because, as I just said,
right.
Denver lost twice at home in the last 2 weeks to
Mm-hmm.
OKC, yet we still think Denver is the better team. Look, Oklahoma City, even in one of those games, it was a bad spot for them. Denver, they've had their chance to beat this team. They
Mm-hmm.
haven't been able to do it at home. I think they did it once in Oklahoma City earlier in the season, but yeah, at this point right now, there's something wrong with the Nuggets. From what I've seen the last few weeks, like they can blow out
Mm-hmm.
the good teams, but they struggle. They struggle against the better teams in the NBA, and
Mm-hmm.
especially they've been vulnerable on the road this season. So yeah, I would put the Thunder ahead of the Nuggets personally.
There you go. All right. The number 2 team in there is Milwaukee, and number 1 is of course the Boston Celtics. So there you go, boys and girls.
Yeah, I mean the Timberwolves have been very good this season.
Mm-hmm.
They're obviously leading the Western Conference right now. Interesting how the top 3 teams in the West all come from the Northwest Division, so
Yeah.
that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, the Timberwolves, they were supposed to be this. This was the team they were supposed to be last season, and
Mm-hmm.
they struggled to put it all together with those trades they made. Obviously, acquiring Rudy Gobert and that they getting rid of D'Angelo Russell and things like that. But now you're starting to see that they're where they were supposed to be last year. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't think this is a team that's overachieving early in the season. I think this is a consistent team that's going to continue to do well. They haven't been at their best the last 2 weeks or so, but again, Cat has been injured, dealing with an injury, and I think when
Mm-hmm.
this team is fully healthy, they're one of the best in the NBA. And yeah, obviously the Celtics, the Celtics number 1, they've shown it. They've shown that they're the best team in the NBA this year. They can blow you out on any given night. Score
Right.
140 points, beat you by 30.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that the trades the Celtics made hurt their team, but they've been staying healthy and they've been playing well. So got to give them that. We'll see what happens. Maybe when they start to pick up some injuries. I'm surprised Porzingis has stayed healthy this time, but
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. No problems with the Celtics. Really, the top three should be, the Thunder,
Stay where they are.
Timberwolves, and the Celtics. I would move the Nuggets down
Right.
one, and then having the Heat in the top 10 at all, I think is
Mhm.
just ridiculous because the Eastern Conference is clearly not as strong as the Western
Right.
Conference this year. And to completely leave the Pelicans out of the top 10 over the Heat is absolutely ridiculous to me. I know everyone wants to get on Zion's case about his conditioning, but
Mhm.
even without Zion, this is a damn good team. So
Right.
yeah, if he just maybe focused a little more, then the Pelicans can have the potential to be one of the most dangerous teams in the NBA. So to
Mhm.
not even have them in the top 10 at all, I think is completely ridiculous.
Absolutely. Um, Let me just throw in here a plug. Later this week, which means tonight or tomorrow, I'll have a column out about what's going on in the NBA with the television rights. And, for a number of years, it's been ESPN and it's been Turner Sports. The new contract, and remember that the NBA is second only to the NFL in ratings, but more importantly to the NBA is overseas. They're second only to the English Premier League in the ratings of international sports. So they're looking to you know really get a big time payday this time around. Now, that being said, I don't think Disney will be out of the picture. I think that they'll carve out a package for ESPN. I think they'll carve out a package for Warner Brothers Sports. They are the new home of Turner. So, the last contract was, $2.7 billion a year. I think the league's looking for 5 a year this year, maybe even a little more. So there's a lot of money that needs to be made up there. Now, when we start looking at who's it going to be, right? I think they're going to embrace streaming like the NBA, the NFL did, and like Major League Baseball has. So I think that's something that you're going to see in there. So you got Apple, you've got YouTube TV, and you've got Amazon. So I think there's even some thought that Netflix might even get in there, but I would be very surprised if that were the case. So you've got ESPN, Disney, you've got Turner, and now under Warner Sports. Don't be surprised at all, because they haven't hid their want to be involved. That NBC is involved. I think that at the end of the day, the NBA wants to have the NFL type thing where you got NBA is on, ABC, ESPN, Disney, um, NBC, Peacock for that package. Um, Turner with Warner Sports, as I said before, and probably don't be surprised if Fox sneaks in there. Fox has dabbled in the concept of having it. Plus, you got streamers, so you may have like a say a Friday night NBA game of the week to go with the Thursday night football situation. So at Amazon Prime. So we'll see how that plays out. I think Apple is leaning heavily into getting Formula One, which is $2 billion a year, which is what I keep hearing. Because Apple likes to have the worldwide rights to everything. So I think that are they going to be interested? They probably will be. Will they be the ones that come out of this? They can, but I really think that F1 contract is what they're aiming their sights at this point in time. So, uh, get ready to pay more money to watch your NBA games in the future. Right now, there's a exclusive window for ESPN and for Turner, and that will close pretty soon here, and they'll open for bid. So keep an eye on that, and I will definitely keep an eye on it and let you know. All right. So, my friend, who is going to be, I mean, Monday is Black Monday. That's what they call it because all the coaches get fired on Black Monday. Who would you say are your top 5 goodbye coaches this time?
All right, top 5 in the league.
Yep.
We can definitely start with Ron Rivera. have
Bye, Ron.
have voiced this many times throughout the season that Ron Rivera is not the coach of the Washington Commanders come the end of the season. So, and again, I think it's one of those things where, it's new ownership. There's going to be a huge overhaul in Washington, and
they're redoing the stadium. Don't forget that.
Exactly, right. The renovations, they're doing everything. Maybe they won't print Washington cups with the state of Washington this time on, hopefully. But this is one where Ron Rivera's gone, and at this point, I think just out of respect to him, they're letting him finish the season. I think he's been fired for a while now. And number 2, we'll say Bill Belichick, because that's another one we've talked about all year. Bill Belichick, and obviously, now the reports, really, you were the first one to drop that insider report, and then weeks later people started to drop it like it was news, and I was sitting here like, I've known about this for 6 weeks. We've known that there's been a mutual parting of ways.
Yeah, before there actually was a mutual parting of ways.
So there you go. We dropped a little insider information courtesy of Jim. So that was, and
we're
going to stick to it. Yeah. We're going to stick to it because personally, you mentioned it yesterday about the Chargers job being a spot for Belichick. And honestly, I think that would be a great fit just because you already got Kellen Moore there, the offensive mind. And I know they just had a defensive guy and it didn't work, but it's about getting the right defensive guy. I wouldn't give up on that because they have great pieces on the defense. That's what's supposed to be good about the Chargers, and that's the part that's bad, and that's what needs to be fixed. So
they need to fix that. Yeah,
you bring in a defensive guy to fix that. For sure, because the last thing you want to do is change the system that your quarterback's been in for the last few years and having some success in as well. So definitely, those 2 are the obvious choices. Now, I don't know if you want to call this really. I don't know if I would call this a firing, but I think we might get a hiring of Antonio Pierce as the head
Raiders
coach. Yeah, he's really been making a case for himself, and I think a big reason too is he's really grabbed the locker room. He's almost like. Yeah, it's almost like a Dan Campbell in the sense where these guys are playing for him. They're willing to run through a wall if he tells them to, and that's what you want from your coach, right? You want a guy that the players want to play for. They're willing to go, play their hardest for. So, I think there's a chance, maybe Pierce doesn't get fired. I'm gonna say that,
or take the interim off of it and let him be the coach. One thing that might even work to his advantage there is remember that that the ownership of the Raiders are still working out the John Gruden deal. It's $100 million. You figure if you go to Antonio Pierce, he's not going to break the bank when it comes to the amount of money you have to pay him. So if you got the locker room and he's cost effective, that might be 2 of the biggest reasons that he ends up staying there. It also gives you more money to spend on players.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And as you said, you're getting a good coach. It's not like we just have to tough it out because we can't afford a big name. It's more so. We can save some money there, and we're getting a good coach that's proven himself somewhat, and the players love him. So, yeah, definitely with that.
Well, there's continuity, which you brought up, right? They know him. They like the system. They may not have the players to make that system work right now, but, it's trending in the right direction.
Yeah. So now another coach that I think will be getting fired. And I don't necessarily agree.
Okay.
But I think it's going to happen just because it feels like his time is done there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say Mike Vrabel is not going to be the head coach of the Tennessee Titans come
Yeah.
the end of the season. It just, Derrick Henry's already alluded that he probably won't be re-signing. He'll be
Mm-hmm.
going somewhere else. And
Right.
it just feels like, they had playoff hopes at the beginning of the
Right.
season. Tannehill was their starter. Tannehill got injured. The
Mm-hmm.
season didn't go the way they wanted. They ended up testing out a rookie who turned out to have, uh, future quarterback, the
Right.
franchise quarterback potential there. But it's been that weird kind of season, and it almost feels like it's time for a changing of the guard, a new head coach,
Right.
maybe draft a running back this year,
Mm-hmm.
and Henry's gone. They
Mm-hmm.
still have DeAndre Hopkins, who will probably try to force his way out once the
Right.
team collapses. They already, traded away Kevin Byard earlier this year. So it feels like Mike Vrabel is done in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't and he's one of those guys who will probably end up getting a coordinator job.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
go. I mean, I agree with your picks. I'm going to throw in the name Arthur Smith in Atlanta. I think that they had great expectations for that team, fairly or not, and I think they're hanging it on Arthur for not making the playoffs with what they thought was a talented team. I think that they're wrong, but it doesn't matter. Arthur Smith, I think, is the guy who's going to get the bad end of the stick in that regard with Atlanta.
I'll tell you what, Jim. I agree with you, and personally, I think I actually think it should. All four teams in the NFC South
Mm-hmm.
need to fire their coaches.
Right.
So obviously the Panthers already did, but Chris Tabor, he's not he's not a solid head coach for that team. So I would obviously fire him as the interim head coach, but they're going to hire the Panthers need to hire somebody. I'm with you, Arthur Smith.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be gone, whether he deserves it or not. Doesn't
Right.
really matter. That team needs a quarterback, if anything.
Right.
But Arthur Smith's probably done there. If the Saints see now, this one is I don't know if it's going to happen, but if the Saints had a half a mind in the front office, they would fire Dennis Allen already. It should have been he should have
Right.
never been promoted as the head coach when Sean Payton left, and
Right.
it's been evident on the field. So
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Allen is one that needs to go. And frankly, I think whether they win the division or not this weekend, Todd Bowles needs to go. He is he's like Bill Belichick. He's a fantastic defensive
Mm-hmm.
coordinator, but he needs to stick to what he does well because we've seen him a few times in these head coaching instances and it just hasn't worked out. He needs to go back. I'm not saying get rid of him. I think he should still continue to be the defensive coordinator on that team, but you need
Right.
a head coach. You need a real head coach in the
Mm-hmm.
entire NFC South.
I wouldn't disagree with any of that. I'm going to throw two names out here. I've got them on my if they don't do well. ... Two guys who are winners, but have not closed. And I'm going to tell you, to me, on the ledge out there, one is Sean McDermott, Buffalo Bills head coach, and the other's Mike McCarthy in Dallas. If they don't perform in the playoffs, I don't see either of those guys making it.
You know what? That's very interesting. I know there's been talks about Sean McDermott being on the hot seat,
Mm-hmm.
and I totally agree. It's a Bills team where every year they come in with high expectations and
Mm-hmm.
they always fall short of the mark. Dallas, I don't know if I agree necessarily with getting
Mm-hmm.
rid of Mike McCarthy just because Dallas is an interesting team. They always have regular season success.
Right.
But I see what you're saying. They always fall short in the playoffs. Now, I would like to see Mike McCarthy maybe with some more time on this team. But then again, I don't know. We'll find out because he does have a very good team this year. And if the results don't pan out, then Um, Actually, two other guys. See, now you've made me think about what about if we're talking about winning teams
Mm-hmm.
who are gonna fire their coaches. Um, we could see Mike Tomlin and Pete Carroll being done at those two because it feels like, yeah, they can. Tomlin he puts out a winning team every year,
Yeah.
but it feels like it's starting to fizzle down to that time when you can just tell, right? In
Yeah.
hockey, there's a thing where when a team's on a big winning streak and then they keep winning games, but now they're winning. They win one in overtime.
Right.
They win another in overtime, and then they go to a shootout. You're ripe
Mm-hmm.
for a loss. Well, that I think is happening with Tomlin and Carroll right now. They're
Mm-hmm.
keeping the teams afloat,
Right.
but it feels like they're ripe, and even if they don't have that losing season this year, if you keep them around, it's coming. It's
Right.
it's it's on the way. So might be something to think about with those two as well.
Right. Right. My theory on Mike McCarthy is this: they just put Jimmy Johnson in the Cowboys Ring of Fame this past weekend, and it got me thinking that Barry Switzer in 1995 with Jimmy's team, and he didn't even deny it that it was Jimmy's team, it wasn't his team, won the Super Bowl. So basically, if you go back, it's been you know 30 years since the Cowboys have won a Super Bowl, and I just think that Mike has done a good job of putting together a outstanding defense, and his offense has been good. But I think if they fall short in the playoffs, if they're one and out or something like that, then I think Jerry Jones is. I don't know. I just have this feeling Jerry Jones doesn't want to go through another losing playoff season.
Well, he is a wild card like that. He could just
You never know with Jerry what's going to happen.
the 12-5 season doesn't matter. You're out of here.
Well, here's what I'm thinking, right? Uh, you mentioned Belichick, all right, and we talked about Bill landing spots. You know, we talked about the Chargers. He likes Todd Light, who's the general manager of the Buccaneers. They work together, so that might be a landing spot he could take. And Todd Bowles with a Belichick involved, he may not want to stay. Fine, you got Belichick and does the defense anyway, so there's that. But I would think that if Belichick was serious about wanting out, it wouldn't surprise me in the least that Jerry Jones would take a swipe at it.
I could see that happening, but I don't know if it would necessarily be a good move for the
Oh
team.
God, no! It'd be a horrible move.
Just because Dan Quinn is
Mm-hmm.
really he's the identity of that defense, and if you
Right.
bring in another defensive mind and take that, and
Right.
now you're taking Quinn away from that,
Right.
you've just destroyed the best part of your team. Because you can
Yeah.
say what you want about this Cowboys team. Oh,
Right.
they blow the crap out of bad teams at home, but it's
Right.
the defense that is their strength. Is their defense. And
Right.
yeah, if you take the guy away that built that, I think it would be a terrible decision to bring in Belichick. But
Right.
as you said, Jerry Jones could do it. He's a wild card.
He's done it before.
Yeah.
I mean, he blew up the it was his ego that I mean, his ego. How many years? We talked about 30 years. Um, Jimmy hasn't been coaching for 25 of those years. And Jerry finally got around to putting him in the ring of honor. So, it was a very strange situation. So we'll have to see how it works out. But I mean, those are just winning coaches who just might be on the edge of being surprise gone situations. So it makes for a fun conversation, but we'll find out on Monday how many of those guys are gone. Keep an eye too in Chicago and some of these other places. They may just think that the next best thing is not what they got right now.
You know what? I think, see, that one did cross my mind, but I think I think if Eberflus gets fired, it's a big mistake because
Mm-hmm.
say what you want about the Bears. Okay, they were never going to be great coming out of the gate. Okay, this guy's in his
Mm-hmm.
second season. What we wanted to see this year was improvement from Fields, and I
Right.
think since the Tyson Bagent stint,
Yeah.
that put the fear of God in
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields because he came back from his finger injury and he
Mm-hmm.
has been playing his ass off, and really you can see the improvement in this Bears team the last few weeks. So yeah.
Well, the Bears are kind of like what you had said about Antonio Pearson and the Raiders, right? I mean, they kind of rallied around the coach, and they've played hard the last few weeks of the season. They had every reason not to, but they didn't. They didn't fold, and they kept playing hard all the way through, and they'll play hard, I'm sure, all the way through the end of this week. So maybe it's stock up in Chicago. Maybe they take another year on him and give him a flyer, and don't pull the trigger and go get panicky.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that just because,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you got to look at what the players are saying too. Like, look at a guy like DJ Moore.
Sure.
Never once when he talks to the media does it sound like he doesn't have hope. There's
Mm-hmm.
always belief in the team
Right.
that they can do it. And that's very important. Obviously, that means, as you said, the players are playing for the coach. They're buying in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something you don't want to take away from it. And they've made some good moves. Look, they didn't have a great season, but now you've seen the improvement from Fields. You went and got, one of
Mm-hmm.
Washington's best defensive players for a steal. So this
Right.
is what I mean. You've sold it. You got the Panthers #1 overall pick. Like,
Right.
there is so much here that you have a defense that you're building.
Right.
You have a quarterback. You have some decent pieces on the offense.
Right.
Just give it time. That's what this team needs more than anything is time,
Mm-hmm.
because as much as these teams, they want to hire a guy and they want to go 12-5 in the first season, it's
Mm-hmm.
not realistic. They
Yeah.
need time, and even like 3 seasons is not a lot of time, really. It's
Mm-hmm.
really not. I think to produce actual results in the NFL, you need to give a coach at least 5 years in a team.
Right. I once was talking to Coach McKay because they made the playoffs in his fourth season as the Bucks head coach. They won the division, and I said, did you always think that in the fourth year that you'd make the playoffs? He said, yeah, I signed a 4-year contract. So he said, if I signed a 3-year contract, I would have thought we'd have made it in 3 years. So it basically was the length of the contract from McKay. But no, I think there's going to be some guys who deserve to get fired, and there's going to be some guys who don't, and that's the way professional sports usually works.
Yep, someone's gonna get fired because they deserve it, and someone else is just gonna be the scapegoat.
I was once told by a general manager, you can't fire 25 players, so we'll fire the manager.
Yep.
So there you go. All right, my friend. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we got coming from your picks for the next day or so?
Yeah, make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. Coming off a 2-3 day, but we look to bounce back today. I'm already 1-0 on the pitch, and
Wow.
you can go get my basketball and hockey for tonight. I got one NHL play, I got one NBA play, and 2 college basketball. So we're gonna have a nice night. Make sure you go check that out.
Absolutely. And tomorrow we'll actually have some stuff to talk about, because Saturday and Sunday, it's it. That'll put a button on the 2023 NFL season. So we'll see how it all plays out, but we'll have some fun tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, guys, have a wonderful day. We enjoy having you with us, and be back tomorrow. Okay, we'll be here around 2 o'clock. Same time, same station. And don't forget to check out Amadeus's stuff in the show box below. Okay, everybody? Talk to you tomorrow.